Hey.
Hello, how's it going, everyone? Evan, how you doing?
Well, it's not going as well for me. Just a heads up. Last week I was dealing. Last 2 weeks that are weeks. It just killed me, Pavel. To my back, I got a pinched nerve from a bulging disc, and I think it's probably because I've been carrying this show for so long. That
Oh,
yeah. So
oh
anyway, if you guys bear
man,
with me, you might see me showing my aches and pains. I just froze it before I took some heavy painkillers just before. So we'll see how this one goes. Hey Key, how you doing, man? Great to have you with us
I'm
here
doing
today. How you doing, my friend? What's up in your world?
I'm doing well. I'm gonna cheers to that. Cheers to that burn, because clearly you're doing that '70s references by Kelso. So okay, I got it. I'm doing well. I'm enjoying life. Things have been super busy on my end. Looking forward to this show. We have a jam-packed show with a lot of stuff to talk about. A lot of hockey news. We have some special guests coming up. I'll let you lead a few of them, but one of them is Sean Fiery, former guest of the show who's been traveling around, and we got to meet with him last week, have a few beers and chat hockey, and he got to see the Edmonton Oilers play the Tampa Bay Lightning and wasn't very happy with the fact that they lost. But if you guys want, make sure to tune in every Wednesday at 7 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. Give us a follow, share, like, subscribe. We are on Facebook. You can follow Evan at Revenev. On Twitter, you can follow us, specifically me, at hockey_2. And you can check out our YouTube channel. If you've missed any of the episodes, we air them all there. And we'd love for you to go back and just check out our older material. And we want to
Hey,
thank our sponsorship and our partnership with Sports Empire. Those guys are
woo!
rocking, and they're doing amazing work. They're getting some big names on their show. They talk all things basketball, all things football, NFL. The
All right.
quarterfinals are coming up this weekend. Go. What? Oh, you can't let me talk? You just.
Yeah, exactly. So, hey, I don't want to take up too much time talking about everything non-hockey related because we know that a lot of you. By the way, I'm standing today just because of again my back pain from carrying Pavel for so long. But I just want to show and to my sister Zilstra to give a hats off if anyone knows. So if you can just kind of look behind me here quickly, you can see when she was at the Seattle Kraken game. Thank you so much, Zil. She got me the Shane Wright jersey. Now, listen, I'm one of the few people, and she remembered that have been sticking up for Shane Wright since the early beginning. But here's the thing. I just want to come back to Shane Wright. Give him some time. He was one of those guys in the OHL that did not get that extra year of development, played like 10 to 15 games in Switzerland or something along that line, and lost a lot of development time. Seattle's a pretty good team to also be able to make this year. As you can see, they're right in those top three in the playoff spots. So, and then to the left here, you'll see the Toledo Walleyes. Now you're like, Toledo? I didn't know they're in the NHL. They're not in the NHL, folks. They are an American Hockey League team. So they are farmed out and work with the Grand Rapids Griffiths. Correct me if I'm wrong, Pavel. The Griffins.
No, you're carrying the show on your back. I got nothing to contribute.
And then also under the Detroit Red Wings. So she was able to get me a jersey. So I got some AHL jerseys. Unlike Pavel, who only buys NHL jerseys because, he doesn't do as much support for junior and NCAA minor leagues. Europe. I got KHL jerseys and stuff. So if you ever are looking to compete with Zill, you can get me some jerseys. I really appreciate it. They can be used or new, and they can be from anywhere, and I will welcome a jersey. Just saying. So, again, thank you so much, Zill. I really appreciate the jerseys. Look forward to seeing Shane Wright's career kind of take off after he gets wrapped up this year. I suspect he might actually spend even one full year. Be prepared for that, to play in the American Hockey League. That's also a possibility before he even gets to play for the Kraken, because that lineup's going to get harder and harder and harder. All right, what do you want to talk about tonight? I got a ton of stuff. Maybe.
Well, I'm first gonna. I have my beverage. I already cheersed you, but I'll first start off by saying I'm waiting for all the free ECHL, AHL, KHL jerseys. I'm sure Patrick Conway's listening. Maybe he can send us a few, specifically me, our way. So that's why I don't buy them, because I know that we have really good connections there. But sure, let you hire out your sister to drive around and pick up jerseys for you. That's always the way to do it.
So that's her new job, right? While she's trucking all over North America picking up jerseys.
How many jerseys are you ordering if she's trucking? Like, how many is she putting on that truck?
Well, set a side business, Hill, and kind of we find a way to get a bigger deal, and we can sell a few off, and bring them back up here to Canada. All right, man. What do you?
All right.
You want to cover?
Okay, I got. Let's start with Gary Bettman's recent comments about how no team, specifically no players, tank for the lottery, and he made some comments about that. Do you want to take it away?
No, I didn't actually hear the comments, so this is totally you, man. You're carrying the show. It's about time.
So Gary Bettman made some comments recently about teams being carried, or teams being carried. See, now I'm off my ball game because you got me all.
Hey, talk about jerseys.
Talking about tanking.
I know. I'm going to interrupt you right now. I love that idea, Brent. Brent's got a good idea. We got to make some two guys in Hockey Talk jerseys, right?
Can we commission you, Brent? I promise. I don't know if it's cheaper to make it in BC or in Alberta.
Yeah, you check out. They might have slave labor out there in British Columbia. I think the parents beat it into them to have to go work for hockey guys.
So this is the quote from Gary Bettman. Nobody tanks because we have a weighted lottery. You are not going to lose games to increase your odds by a couple of percentage points. That's silly. And frankly, suggesting tanking, I believe, is inconsistent with the professionalism that our players and coaches have. Right? So, Evan, I'll let you chime in about your thoughts, but I really believe that teams do tank. And the earliest one that comes to mind is Buffalo for Connor McDavid. I don't know. I could be wrong. If we're going to go a little bit far back, one of your favorite teams, Pittsburgh Penguins, and what they did.
Mario
Lemieux, right?
Yeah.
To say that players and coaches don't tank, I agree. Players and coaches play their best because they are playing for a job. They want the most wins. They're being competitive. That's what every player is going to say. You take an Arizona or Chicago at the beginning of this season and they say, yep, we want to get into the playoffs. We want a chance at the Stanley Cup. We want to make an effort and we want to compete. And they do. Not every game is grade A, but they compete. Now, management, on the other hand, has a different idea. Do you not think that teams like Philadelphia, Chicago, Arizona, Montreal aren't looking at this year's deep draft, which you guys can check out Evan's Rev's top 15. All these elite players could be as deep as 2015. You think management isn't going and thinking, Connor Bedard is going to make my team better. Adam Fantilli is going to make my offense better for this team.
Well, and that is a very interesting. So to say, is someone tanking it? If you guys watch different shows like Suits, some of the lawyer shows, maybe Better Call Saul, that might be a good one. Some of you are going, there's no possibility that happens. Listen, you obviously don't realize what they've done now. Yes, they've exaggerated it. It happens. Believe me, it happens. Now, teams can do it so subtly, and they will not share they're doing it. Who gives it away? So, well, I was tanking last year. No one will do that because usually the top five, it's like I've got a rant on every subject today. But the top five, if you don't get in and you're maybe second or third, you still have a top three player. So I'm sorry, Gary. You can go back and suck on your pacifier. And the money you're making is not worth it because you are totally ridiculous. If you're saying who's silly, you're silly, Gary. Get with the program, just like you think the reffing's. Okay, that was my little rant with Gary, but the answer is yes, I do think do it, but never tell. How do not players do that? I do not believe players tank. Players want to perform the best so that they can be looked at. But if you're a general manager, sometimes they keep general managers in just a little longer through in the tanking seasons, as we fans call it. And at the end of those times, those drafts, like the chance of someone like Ron Francis being around in another 5 years is going to the chances are probably, I'm going to give a 20 to 25% chance. It's a big league. It's a big boys league, 32 teams. So come on, let's get it worked out here. Okay.
Well, And if you look at what a rebuild is, what are teams doing? They're building the best prospects. So of course they're going to end up at the bottom, right?
Yeah.
It's not tanking per se, but you know that they're not going to be good and successful. And they're going to trade away assets for bare bones just to compete. I mean, that's what Arizona did. That's what Chicago's doing. But simply put, it's silly. Now, I got to hand it to you, Evan. I think I need a glass of milk because you are extra spicy tonight. You are bringing it.
Oh, my goodness.
But what do you want to talk about next?
Okay, well, why don't we do this? Just to start off the story here today, there has been, it's interesting because, you know, we get a lot of trades and potential rumors, but now with things like the salary cap, a lot of things happen early. I talked about Bo Horvat probably being one of the first big ones to be the first move, which you could expect very close coming up. Most people are going to wait a little closer to the deadline, but you're not going to see the huge moves other than one or two on that day. I think most of them are going to be building up to that period of time. So I was thinking, why don't we sit and kind of go through some of the different things that are out there? There are some really reliable sources sending out some of these rumors. I'd like to be armchair GMs today. What do you guys think out there in the fandom world? You want to be an armchair GM? You can kind of pop in on some of these questions. So maybe I'll tap into a couple different teams. If you guys got different takes on it, perfectly fine. You're allowed to be wrong. I think it's okay if you're wrong. Go ahead and share with us. Or you can tell us that we absolutely know nothing of what we're talking about. Hey, Aaron, how you doing, man? And by the way, on Spotify, Sports Empire, Empire Sports is now on Spotify, so you can catch our shows if you subscribe to Spotify. Thanks to Key over there at the network. He's providing and getting it all set up. Hey, Kyle, go check out Kyle's work also there on the Sports Empire Network. All right, so let me go into the first piece that I want to talk about here. Chicago, because it's looking more and more like it's either Chicago or Anaheim who are going to get that number 1 and number 2 picks, be it whichever direction. Fantilli, and it's looking like I don't know if I'm going to have him ranked, by the way, in a real draft as the second best player that will have the second best career out of this draft. But right now, in a mock draft, high chance he goes number 2. And by the way, for all those people that don't recall, based on a while back when we talked about some of the different guys that I had on my list a while back, I just want to mention we had Mishkov when we talked about that. Everyone's saying the same thing. The scouts, all the people out there, it's too uncertain. He's not getting the prime. He got hurt, not getting prime time. He's not getting the people to see how well he plays. But chances are he could have the second best hockey career still, though. So just so you know, my list is going to be going through a midseason adaptation in the next 2 weeks here. So you'll be able to see it. Okay, so let's look at Chicago. Who is there to move? We talked about this before. And what is the possibilities of places that we're hearing? So I'm going to share my thought. And then, Pavel, you can kick in. And you guys, if you have any comments or any other thoughts or destinations, I do want to say this right off the bat. Zill, you don't have to get in on this. We had a phone call the other day. She probably tells me this every time. So I'm just going to share it since I got the platform here for you, Zill. Zylstra thinks it would be a wonderful idea if Ron Francis could somehow negotiate a trade and bring in Patrick Kane and Jonathan Toews to Seattle and be able to re-sign them down there for where, and that, with their team growing quicker. I mean, that's no easy feat, but that is a good possibility. But yeah. I haven't heard any rumors. Nobody's saying that. But just so you guys know, if it happens, Zylstra said it first here on our show and on my text line, on my phone line. So, okay. So Jeff Merritt, you guys know he's a pretty plugged-in guy. He's been talking a lot about Patrick Kane and Jonathan Toews. But what he is saying is they are not still prepared to make a decision on their respective futures. Can I say this? I think they already know. They are just not going to act like they're ready to go already, because it can actually hurt the team's ability to get the best prospects and or players. So I actually think that's what they are saying. Jeff Merritt's reporting correctly, I believe. But my intuition, not inside, but my intuition is that they're purposely leaving it. Now, what I want you guys to think about is a team we haven't talked a lot about. We've said it once or twice. but strongly now look over at Carolina, who's making a push because Pacioretty is now out again. And with him being out, they need a player to supplement those goals. Now, is it going to be a Taze or is it? And I wonder if they would go more for the Taze as a centerman than they actually would go for Kane, and he's going to probably cost a lot less. Any thoughts on that from your angle?
Yeah, I could definitely see that. I was thinking more they were looking for a winger like a Tarasenko out of St. Louis for Carolina. But for Taves, I really think I'm connecting him to his home roots of Winnipeg. And Winnipeg is definitely making a push this year and doing well. And the kid to go back home to play for his hometown team, I think that would be a pretty cool storyline. And he could really bolster that line, especially given what they have out there, and potentially with Dubois gone in the offseason. I mean, maybe he'll want to stick around for just a little bit more, be a veteran to the younger guys. And I feel like Kevin Cheveldayoff could do that. So that's where I'm thinking.
Yeah, and that's interesting. I mean, it would be interesting if you saw Patrick Kane go to the Islanders and Jonathan Taze go to, and by the way, just so people understand, he's a homeboy. He's from there already. So seeing Taze go there, that could replace Wheeler quite well. Just wanting to mention, hey, Brent, 100% he believes teams tank. The players won't, but management will, and they're not going to say it out loud whatsoever.
Yeah, of course they won't.
Also, Zilka in here on her Chicago stuff. She's saying they're going to get rid of a half dozen players because they couldn't win games anyway, so you might as well get something. That's what they did last year, but they actually had players they got rid of and got very little back from them. That was the thing that was kind of thrown around last year that I found very interesting with it. So, okay, now Friedman didn't name. So for those that don't know, Elliot Friedman on 32 Thoughts, that's what he's been known for many years. Also on Hockey Night in Canada, he's on Sportsnet. You can find him. He didn't name any clubs that would be of interested parties for Horvat specifically, but he did mention, this was interesting, I found in his article, the Seattle Kraken and the Minnesota Wild as considerations. That was just last Friday he talked about this. So it got me thinking of that, the very thing is, could Seattle, they either land a Bo Horvat or they land a Patrick Kane? Could they really? That's one thing I'd say, that if they could use a little more scoring, that would be a big difference maker in their potential ability in the playoff, especially with some playoff experience. But of course, Horvat doesn't have the experience that they're needing on that part. So interesting.
Well, he only has one year or maybe two, 2020 and 2015 when they last went to the.
Free. So, well,
I meant for playoff experience, but
yeah, I think is there a potential that we could see a sign and trade this year?
That's what I think Boston is looking at, because they're losing Krejci and potentially Bergeron. So if you're wondering about Boston, they did that with Hampus Lindholm, right, out of Anaheim.
Yeah,
they signed and traded him, and then they extended him right away to the 8x8 contract. So definitely would be interested. Colorado is another one to look out for, especially with all the bodies that they're out. I think Landeskog is still out. And I'm pretty sure JT Compher has been playing second-line center, which isn't really his normal role. It's his third-line role. And losing Kadri was a big loss for them because he was that perfect second-line center.
Yeah, that's true, too. I could see the Wild trying to get in, Bill Guerin trying to get it on something. Just want to go back to a note that was made by Aaron, our buddy, a little earlier there. He says Blue Jackets for Bedard. Sorry, my apology. I said Anaheim, but it's Columbus fighting it out with Chicago for that last spot right now for the best percentage. But they do desperately need someone there. And a lot of the players that have been stars have eventually left, even the Rick Nashes. Whereas I really believe a player like Connor Bedard is more like McDavid, that they're going to be there for at least 10 to 11 years. They're going to have their entry level, and then they're probably going to take a full 8-year contract to the max wherever they are playing and surround them. That would be an interesting piece if they picked them up, because, I mean, he could fit really well right now with Patrick Laine and Johnny Gaudreau. That could be an interesting mix. So that
team has really struggled a lot this year with injuries, and with Alex Texier being out, definitely for personal reasons. So Definitely Columbus could use something, but health-wise, they've really struggled. Now, granted, a lot of teams are dealing with injuries. Colorado is a big prime example, but Colorado's finding ways to win cups, right? Because you have that pedigree. So I wonder if there will be a coaching change in the offseason for Columbus.
Yeah.
Because I don't know if Brad Larson will stick around just because maybe he wasn't getting the best out of that team. Like Columbus, I understand Columbus is bad. It shouldn't be that bad, right?
Well,
but that's just my thoughts.
Interesting enough, you talk about tanking, right? But I wonder if they get Bedard. I see a coaching change. Without Bedard, they're going to wait at least a half season, I think. So, hey, our comments box is full of stuff, so I just want to go to a couple others. Our buddy Kyle Edwards over at Sports Empire Network. Hey, guys, go Bruins. He's a Bruins boy. Will they lose another game? So, interesting enough, I'm in it, and I see that we got a little war going on because this is what Zilster has to say. She says, I love it. Bruins get the President's Trophy, so we know they aren't winning the Stanley. Do you want to explain that to everybody? Because not everybody understands why Zil might be making that comment.
So in the last few years, I think like 8 or 9 years, the President's Trophy winner hasn't gone on to win the Stanley Cup. So they've lost. Last year was Florida. A couple of years back, it was Colorado. A while back, Washington won it. Vancouver won it. And then the year they went back-to-back, and then they ended up going to the final but losing to Boston in 2011. So the Preds, I think, did it in 2017, and then they lost eventually to the Pittsburgh Penguins. So really, at the end of the day, it seems like a bit of a curse. It's only been in the last little bit over a decade, I believe it is. You guys can correct me or let us know, but that's why. However, fun fact is usually if you win the President's Trophy the year before, 2 or 3 years down the line, you are in a Stanley Cup final, right? So, you're looking at Washington, who just won a cup. You're looking at a Colorado, same thing. And Florida, for all its struggles. Tampa Bay as well in 2015, I think it was, that they went to the final.
Didn't the Oilers in the heyday happen once to them too?
So it definitely is something to watch for. The playoffs are a separate beast in itself, as you guys know. I'm looking forward to it this year. But Boston, it looks like the real deal. And it looks like, as Bergeron talked about in the offseason, that last dance, that phenom of this could be it.
Yeah.
And they're firing on all cylinders. And right now, Jim Montgomery is my coach of the year right now, for what he's been able to do. So, and I think, Kyle, I really do think they can beat the record. I think the record's 62. Go ahead. I'm trying to hold my own here.
Could you imagine if Vegas wins the division? You could have their coach who was cast off as maybe runner-up for Coach of the Year. If
Vegas has struggled in the last little bit, and losing Mark Stone has been a big.
But they've been dealing with injuries and that, and to do as well even as they are, just because you go through a little losing streak, when you're still hanging on to that spot because of your earlier wins. So here's one thing that you got to think about though with President's Trophy winners: when they win a lot of games during the season, they're not used to losing, and when you go through hardships and hard times. Unless most of those players in the team have been there and done that, and they've ate it for breakfast, it is tough on players to go through when they just don't have the resiliency built into them over the years. So
you also have a different schedule, whereas in the playoffs you face the same opponent for X amount of games.
Yeah, that's true.
You know where you're playing at, the bar in the system. Within the regular season, one day you're in Buffalo, the next you're in Toronto, the next you're in Detroit. So you're jumping around, and your competition, and some people feel good. Throughout the season there's ebbs and flows. Excuse me. Now I do want to bring up quickly, because I know you're big on draft picks. Yes, Spotify.
Hey, Aaron, you're right, man. Spotify. Thank you, Key Williams over at Sports Empire, for getting that set up. Yeah.
I want to talk to you guys and Evan specifically.
Go ahead.
About draft picks. And recently, Bruce Cassidy, as you alluded to, and maybe Kyle or someone else can allude to this, Bruce Cassidy called out Jack Eichel. Now, do you think Jack Eichel is the second-round pick from that draft in 2015? Do you think he's proven himself, and can he carry that team, or no? What are your thoughts on his career so far? Second overall.
I think that he's done exactly. I'm a guy that went through a disc replacement. Has dealt with what could have been a career-ending injury, with it. So everything that he's done. See, even Buffalo tanking, they still got Jack Eichel. Every other team in the league would have wanted him. You know, it's one of those things. Maybe not if you'd want him at least on his entry level contract, you know, during those first few seasons. But yeah, absolutely, he's right there with the rest of them in what he's been able to do and playing on not very good teams. Now he's on a different team that has a different style of play. And truth is Vegas plays more of a team game, whereas Buffalo was. They went through a lot of changes. And the changes of coaches and GMs and everything that he went through over there, I think it was they're now coming around. And by the way, we do have Jeffrey Odd. He's done some podcasts and some work on the Buffalo Sabres and Edmonton Oilers stuff. He's out of Edmonton, but he is a Buffalo Sabres top fan, has a lot of info. We're going to be bringing him on in February, guys. So, we're going to be able to listen in to get some more talk around the Buffalo Sabres themselves. And I should mention, we're just wrapping up some stuff. So next week, as Pavel mentioned, Sean Fiery will be on. We're going to talk what it's like being in the different arenas, what it was like in the atmosphere of the cities, inside the arenas, and how he felt the team has been faring on the road trip that he's followed as Tampa Bay Lightning. So he will be on with us live next week. So make sure you join us. Okay, did you have another piece, or do you want me to go to my next piece?
No, go to the next piece.
Okay, let's talk about this, man. We're going to talk about what's relevant. This is important. So the Canucks are back up again because the Bruce Boudreau thing with being replaced, we've gone through that, to Rick Tocchet. Here is something interesting. Not many people are talking about it. Patrick Elvin, Elvin, or however you want to say him, Elvin! No, I'm just joking. Elvin and the Canucks. But who is this on? Who is this really on? Right?
Francis
Rutherford made the comments, though, right? Rutherford made the bad comments because he's supporting his boy. He's trying to bring his Pittsburgh boys in. Rick Tocchet was an assistant coach. They have the same style. They bring their boys in. They bring whoever it is that's been faithful to them. And I see what they're trying to do. That's not my question here. My question is how much say does Patrick have as a GM with the president, with Rutherford, and who's calling the shots in this situation? And truth is, a lot of the decisions that have been made, even the contract, that was on Patrick. That was not on Rutherford, unless Rutherford's telling him to do something, and Patrick truly is not a GM.
I agree. I think it is Rutherford. No, I think it's Rutherford.
I don't think it is. Okay, then what you're saying, what you're saying is Patrick Elvin.
Did you not watch the press conference where he finally said he's going to let Patrick make the decisions now? He's the one that's made a lot of these decisions. He's the one that didn't want Boudreau. He made those comments on Hockey Night in Canada After Hours. He said that the team doesn't play with structure and that Bruce Boudreau wasn't even his guy and that he didn't even know that he was extended for one more year, which he was confused about, which raised a lot of eyebrows around the time when this was announced. And he's made a few offhanded comments, and he was brought in before Alvin to make changes and to shake things up, given his history in Carolina and in Pittsburgh and what he had done for both those franchises. 3 Stanley Cups is
But what I did not hear him saying he's been making all the decisions. And what you're saying is you read in that interview that he is saying he's made decisions and he's just passing them on, which means when Patrick came into that position, Patrick was a wussy. He was just a puppet, is all he was, coming in for Rutherford.
Yeah. Why do you think the Sedin brothers stepped down from their high-level role? Because they found that it was a little bit chaotic up there, and it was too much, and they didn't want to, because there was a lot of discussion 2-3 years ago about how we could see we talked about it on our show, you guys can go back, our first double GM job, the two twins, to do both jobs. Now, I know there's GM and then president of hockey operations and, semantics and things like that, but I think this falls on Jim Rutherford as well as Francis Aquilini, because Jim Rutherford is doing the business and bidding of Francis Aquilini, and I think their goal is continue to retool and restructure on the fly as it goes along in order to make the Vancouver Canucks competitive. But they've only made the playoffs twice in the last decade, which isn't exactly boding results. And fans, like any Canadian fan base, is getting fed up and annoyed, right? At least other fan bases are seeing their teams make the playoffs, and then within that, there's issues. But within Vancouver, it's been a real lack of drafting. They only draft really well in the first draft, in the first round. Everything else beyond that, there hasn't really been much. And they're really trading away a lot of their assets. This is one of the criticisms that Jim Benning has. So I put this squarely on Jim Rutherford. I do not put this on Alvin because he is inexperienced.
Okay.
And I think that he was making the decisions. And now he said, I'm going to zip it and I'm not going to share much more information. But that's just me.
Yeah, I did hear that, and he did say some of the things. But I'm reading into it differently, I think, than you are. Saying I do not think that Patrick has been a puppet all along. I think Patrick's had more say, and Rutherford's just taking a bit of the heat off him. This is what we will do. Maybe we won't get an answer, but we're just trying to wrap up the final details. I have a phone call tomorrow with the former vice president, Glenn Ringdale of the Vancouver Canucks. He has agreed to come on our show. We just have to work out a time. And what we're going to chat about, we're going to talk around the business of hockey and some of the experiences, even bringing the BCHL Chilliwack Chiefs to Chilliwack. But when we talk to Glenn, let's get a feel for this thing of president versus GM and just get his thoughts. Obviously, he may not know. Maybe there's stuff he can't share with us, but he is alumni and he is there with them. So we'll see if he's willing and open to be able to talk about that. As he wrote in our email, he says he is retired. So hopefully he won't come under any scrutiny if he was able to share. So, again, we appreciate you guys kind of bearing with us. Zill has a great thought here. She was just talking about. She's saying Myers. She believes that they're a fit in New Jersey and San Jose. So I just quickly went on here. $6 million a year, Zill. $6 million a year. That can work in San Jose. I do not believe it's going to work in New Jersey. You can check Cap Friendly. But I'm a little worried that won't work for New Jersey unless they eat some salary, which they could. And can we just say this? What about Timo Meyer?
Timo Meyer.
Meyer. Oh, my goodness. I'm way off today. Obviously, I know nothing about hockey.
Who's carrying who now?
When my colleague has to tell me something, that means I know absolutely nothing. But no, anyway, I do see Timo going to New Jersey as a potential because both Hughes and Nico Hischier, they're both centers. And they need a winger that can actually move the puck. And he's a bit of a power forward, too, when he gets out there. So
Is Andre Palat back from injury? I know that he was out for a while. He came over from Tampa Bay. You guys can let us know in the comments. Sorry to interrupt.
Yeah, so you guys, if you can find that out or not for us, then we'd appreciate that piece in it. But that is a very interesting thought process. I do want to say that, where was it? Let me just go. I had a couple of my other notes I just wanted to mention. I believe it was it. Yep. So Timo being rumored over to New Jersey as a potential catch. There is 3 reliable sources, 3 solid sources that have a background in good information that are both saying there's a high possibility of him going there. So that will be an interesting one to watch. It could seem subtle, but that could be one big move to get them over on their forwards too. And he's a good two-way player at the same time. But there's also talk that he could fit well in Winnipeg also. So it seems to me like New Jersey and Winnipeg and Carolina might be the ones going for some of the big guns.
The other one, and it's a far reach, is Toronto because they'd have to give up something. But I know they're looking for a winger for the second line for Tavares and Nylander. Yeah,
okay. So let's go to Toronto. They're interested in now I can throw his name up over in Columbus. You guys can correct me on the pronunciation. I know Pavel will because I will bug him if he messes it up. But that's Gavrikov over in Columbus. He's a big guy. He's not a physical heavy guy. So he does play a big hard-hitting game. It's just big, strong, and tough. And he does come with a lower cap hit. But both Edmonton Oilers and Toronto Maple Leafs have interest and have been kicking the tires in some possibilities. So, consider I could see that a better fit in Toronto than I actually see it in Edmonton still.
It's interesting because Toronto has so many extra D on the back end. I know they have a few injuries, but it's
maybe not quite as good though players.
I agree. I agree. And we all
know if you're going to make a run, you need to have 9-10 defensemen.
Agreed. But I thought the bigger concern Toronto may have, and maybe Desmond or Hans can correct us, is goaltending. And I'm wondering if that's going to be, if Samsonov and Murray are strong enough to get them deep into the playoffs, because they've got Morgan Rielly, they've got TJ Brody, they've got Mark Giordano, who I know is older. They've got Timothy Liljegren, who's been playing pretty solid. They got Justin Hall there, and they got Rasmus Sandin, right? And then they've got what's his name on the back? Jordy Ben is still there. He's their seventh defenseman amongst a few others. So, yeah, Grabakov could fit in there, but who do you replace, right?
So here's something. As far as I understand, it sounds like the Grabakov does have a no trade list, a no Canadian trade list. But there is an exemption for the Maple Leafs. That is the newest piece that's out there. So that's one of the reasons I don't see him coming to Edmonton, even though Edmonton might be interested in bringing him back here, right? So, all right,
It's good that Columbus checked that list before trading him away and then having to return to that team. I'm looking at you, Vegas.
Okay, let's move over to someone else. What about John Klingberg? Over in Anaheim, John Klingberg. Now, this is another one of some pretty good, reliable people are stating that Klingberg could be someone that could be picked up and sent over to Seattle with the Kraken.
Yes.
So, how do you feel? Do you feel that he would fit in the Kraken's lineup with his offensive power?
I think you would. I mean, they have a good depth pieces. I mean, Vince Dunn is solid, but he's coming up. I believe he's a UFA. Larson signed for a while. He's their defensive defenseman. You got Carton Soucy on the second line or second pairing with Jamie Oleksiak, who's a big body defensive defenseman. And they're all putting up solid numbers. But if you get Klingberg on that back end, he can help their top power play, which is already solid in the league this year, and really make a push, especially if they are going to make the playoffs, right? So it's definitely interesting.
You're saying Soucy's been playing with Oleksiak?
No, I don't know if he's playing on that line. I'm saying I know he's one of the defensemen there. I don't know what the line combinations are.
No. Well, Soucy can play both left and right as well as Oleksiak. So that's possible.
I'm just saying that's their top four. Larson, Vince Dunn, Soucy, and Oleksiak.
See, one thing that I thought about is I know there's been a lot of talk about the Oilers liking Carson Soucy.
Yeah.
Is it potentially a possibility that something could happen where if they can land Klingberg, they can bump Soucy out, get their more offensive, and someone more on a defensive with a little bit of truculence could end up in Edmonton, and they can also pick up a pick while they're doing it to replace whatever pick they have.
Yep. Ron Francis has done a really, really good job, and I think, again, it's one of those things where you want to get rid of an expiring contract and only take one on that has some term, which I think Holland is looking at as well in Edmonton, but just food for thought.
Okay, so here's something else that I think people haven't been thinking about, and it's really interesting that the Kraken are the ones we're talking about, but very few people are mentioning anything about Jacob Chychrun and the Seattle Kraken.
Yeah, because I don't think they're in. I don't think they want to pay that ransom.
Well, and that might be it. And but when it comes to last minute, and depending if they're able to land someone, maybe they go after John Klingberg. He's going to be a UFA at the end of the year. He's on a $7 million deal right now, so that could be an interesting piece.
I'm still looking at LA. LA is the perfect fit for Jacob Chychrun, and if they get him, it just gets them over the hump. Now, again, like Toronto, LA.
You think they're trading within the division?
They're not within the division. Oh, I get it. No, they're not within the division. What are you talking about? They're in the Pacific, and Arizona's in Central.
Arizona got moved to the Central? Oh, man, I forgot. It's a 32-team thing, man, that keeps throwing me now.
Oh, man, Evan.
Well, for some of us who have known the Coyotes since they first came in, because obviously you're a little too young, sounds like, because you forget they've been in the Pacific their whole life.
Oh, I know they were.
Recently,
and they moved a couple of years back, and they were not happy about it, but they're in the Central.
They've only moved once in the Pacific. Yeah, yeah, you're right.
Oh, thank you. Can we get that in writing? But I still see LA as a potential place for Chychrun to end up, just because LA has a lot of draft picks. They have a lot of defensive guys, especially some young guys. There's been interest in Sean Durzi. So maybe Mikey Day is one. I mean, definitely keep an eye out for LA because they have the prospects that would benefit from going to what's it called, to Arizona.
Okay.
So that's my
interesting
answer.
enough. Okay. Zilstra actually thinks that Vegas is going to falter. She probably thinks a lot like you, and she's bringing up that she actually. Sorry, I put up her wrong post. Yeah, way to go, Zil. The Pac-10 summer. Anyway,
Is that
put up the Oilers winning the division this year instead of Vegas and/or Seattle coming in.
That was my prediction initially.
Yeah, well, and it was looking like they were heading in a dark direction, but it's so interesting in hockey how a team can turn things around. They had a lot of injury issues this year that they kept sweeping in, and really weird schedules where they play all the best teams, and then it's in another section where they're playing the teams that are lesser for a good period. It was kind of a weird thing. Okay, so let's spend a little time now just talking around. We know they were a Final Four team last year with the Edmonton Oilers. So what do you think is going to – so this is what the rumors around Edmonton and any of its Oiler fandom around the Oilers Nation is really saying that they obviously would like a second LD, meaning left defenseman, that could put Kulak down to the lot. Remember, Broberg can move over to the right. Yeah. But Broberg is starting
and he's been playing very well.
Desharnais has been playing incredibly good. He's like, I think they would say, 6'7" and 3/4, almost as tall as Chara, and he's had excellent stick reach and he's been playing really well. But a
couple of too many penalties.
Yeah, a defenseman who is going to be strong though, right? By the way, the penalty thing has a lot to do with size. We've seen that for years. Chara got some really bad penalties just because the guy's so
just
tall.
Look at Tyler Myers in Vancouver.
Thing. Yeah. I think refs got to be a little bit more fair about that. Okay, so around the Oilers, there's talk that they might go after a few players. So most of the talk, and it's built around, I know their radio 630 Ched, their radio call-by-play color commentator Bob Stauffer, who travels with the Oilers and does stuff. He's really pushing for Sean Lafferty. I know some people believe that he actually is
Sam Lafferty.
There you go. Look at this. Look at this, everyone. This guy is just correcting me all night long here. That's good.
Well, since you're holding your back, I'm trying to ease the pain.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. I'm feeling the pain. That might be what
I'm the crutch that barely keeps you standing standing vertical.
But anyway, so when it comes to Lafferty, he could add a little bit of truculence. He can play some center. He's got a good face-off. He does a lot of defensive zone starts. That could be a fourth line, maybe pushed into a third if needed. And Chicago's going to be selling, so that's why he's pushing that one.
No, I don't know if it was Sam Lafferty or Connor Murphy that indicated that they have a 10-team no-trade list, including all Canadian teams. So one of those two in Chicago, both defensemen. I know that there was interest in both of those. Or Jarrett McCabe even was the third one.
Is that what you heard? That's
what I heard.
McCabe. I know McCabe has one. I did not think Lafferty actually had
one. I was just remembering one of them had it. You guys can let us know in the comments. But anyways, go ahead. So you've been hearing about Oilers
trying to look for Lafferty. Lafferty does not have a no trade.
Okay, so there you go.
No, I know McCabe does, and you can be pretty certain the only team he may go to is Toronto as well because it's more of an American close. Since the pandemic, it's been more and more when players are always worried if something happens, they can't cross that border, and that's why a lot of Americans.
I still want to make the notion, and I know people will always talk about, well, nobody wants to play in Canada. You have probably some of the best players in the league playing in Canadian markets, and if you don't believe that, just look at McDavid, just look at Austin Matthews, just look at Connor Hellebuck, Brady Tkachuk, and these guys are signing long term. Quinn Hughes in Vancouver, and Claude Giroux. These aren't nobodies. These aren't, bottom dweller players. So I just want to make that notion because I know people will probably harp on Canada like, oh, nobody wants to play there. Certainly there's reasons why. People are passionate. Taxes are different a little bit more, but
yeah. Well, hey, one more player I forgot to mention. We got kind of thrown off here because you had to keep correcting me. Was Shane Gostisbehere in Arizona as well.
Yes.
Because the fact that they really don't need him yet. He's at that end of his career years. So right now, that little bit of offense could be something also that Seattle could be interested in. And, I am totally shocked right now that we're talking about a team that we watched on draft day going, what in the world are they doing with their picks? And I've had this conversation with some people because a lot of the picks they took were players from the team who had like a couple of years on their entry level. They're down in the A or they're playing in the NCAA. None of those players have really seen the light of day or anything. But what a way to pick up, not take on contracts like Tarasenko and stuff. Hold yourself. Get some good drafts, which they have had. 2 good drafts now. Some of the picks that they still have coming and some of the players that they've developed and some of the I'm amazed that we're actually calling them to be one of the main players at trade deadline. Yeah. Well, there you go. So Pavel agrees. That makes for great podcast.
It's the first time. Well, I mean, there's not much more I can say about that.
Yeah, that's true. Okay,
let's talk about Gostisbehere and how he's turned his career around in Arizona on that team after being a young and promising star and really falling out of favor with the Philadelphia Flyer organization. And maybe Jamie Basco can comment on this, but he really reignited his career and really became the backbone of that power play and that back end in Arizona. So props to him because whatever they did, they had a good trainer there, or trainers.
I like that. Well, so this is his last year, and he is a UFA at the end of the year. So that's important to actually. His cap hit is $4.5 million. What are we sitting at right now? So this year, where is he at? So he's sitting this year, 48 games, 9 goals, 20 assists, 29 points. He is a -8.
We have a trade to announce if you want, a small one.
Yeah, go for it. A trade. What? This will be our first official trade announcement live. Okay,
yes.
Go for it. I haven't heard
man.
that.
So the San Jose Sharks and Colorado Avalanche. So San Jose have traded away Matt Nieto and Ryan Merkley for Jacob McDonald and Martin Cote. So a lot of AHLers.
So they sent Merkley from Colorado down to San Jose?
Yep, and Nieto.
I like
Matt
Merkley.
Nieto.
Yeah, I actually like this for San Jose.
Thank you to Aaron, our insider, who let us drop the knowledge. So thank you to him.
Oh, did he drop it down in our comment section?
No, he dropped it in our chat into my
okay.
personal feed. This is how I get my sources. and I told him the name.
Well, thanks, buddy. We appreciate that, Aaron. Thanks for dropping the line down here for us. Okay, so let's take the last little bit of time that we have. Hey, Freddie, man, how you doing? Guys, you got to follow Freddie and the Sports Empire Network, man. We advertised them earlier, but they have everything going. They got new stuff happening, so make sure you check it out. Don't forget, they're on Spotify now, too.
Freddie's upset that the Lakers lost last night to the Clippers and just can't seem to get past Paul George and Kawhi Leonard. But that's just my thoughts. Anyways.
Okay, so let's go back and kind of look at Jamie Basco's Philadelphia Flyers, which we pretty much talked about at the beginning of the year. They are still fighting hard. They're still winning some what you would think are unwinnable games with it. But there are some trades that they can potentially make right now. Now, the biggest one, and these are reliable sources, I have an inside source, 2 of them. There you go. They're inside. Don't ask me who they are. But anyway,
one of them isn't me, so it doesn't count.
James Van Reeves. Yeah, I'm not looking at Pavel the Insider. So James Van Riemsdyk, so last Tuesday, not last Tuesday, sorry, yesterday, Tuesday, the Flyers are still really, it's believed that they are hoping to be able to move him by the deadline. Now, he's carrying some salary with him. If you pull it up on your Cap Friendly, you'll be able to see that. And last month, there was someone from the Western Conference that has talked a little bit about this, and given his point production, there will be a market also for Hayes. So Hayes is a good possibility. Again, remember, they're rebuilding right now, or retooling, whatever you want to call it.
Hayes got 4 more years.
Yeah, Hayes would, but what's Van Riemsdyk at?
Van Riemsdyk is at 1 more year, so he's a UFA after this at $7 million this year.
So here's the thing: anyone going for Hayes, there will have to be salary retention to the team that's picking him up. So they will need Philadelphia to pick up 25 to 50% of it in order to make it work at the salary cap.
Would a Vancouver losing a center help?
Well, that could make a big difference.
Or Detroit, who may not have their captain after this season.
Yeah, interesting who that might be or might not be, eh?
Yeah.
Hey, just want to mention also while we're at it, a little bit of news. We'll talk more about it next week. I'm going to share a few players over in the KHL who are NHL prospects. They are playing still in the KHL. So they won't be coming over, let's just say, until things basically end, I think, on the war front with the invasion into the Ukraine. But there is a player for Toronto who's playing well. If you Toronto fans know your players, check who's playing in the KHL. Take a look how he's doing, as well as there's 2 more that I will mention and bring to you next week. I didn't get all my information. I want to give you specifics when it comes to the KHL. Otherwise, Patrick Conway will be all over me telling me I got the wrong information.
Can I guess the Toronto player?
If you want.
Rodion Amirov?
No.
Okay.
Yeah, no. Totally. He's a big behemoth. Big player. Okay. Doing big things over there.
Got to think of my prospect pool for Toronto. Okay.
No, actually, I haven't actually followed Amirov, see what's been happening.
Well, he had that heart condition or incident, and then he's come back, or
he's been back playing again. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I'm not sure how it's affected him on ice. Yeah, we'll have to be able to take a look there. So, yeah, for any fans of the Maple Leafs, if you have anything, definitely send it our way. With it. So, but anyway, yeah. So it should be good. Hey, Dante, how you doing, Coach? Over at Sport, man. All the Sports Empire boys are hopping online, saying their highs.
Thank you.
We appreciate you all the way. So, anyway, we're gonna get ready to call it a wrap. My shoulder is killing me. My back pain. I'm gonna have to call it off. I feel like it's like a lactic burn that's just in the back. Oh, sorry, guys. Just kind of going through the back shoulder. And every time I get corrected by Pavel, it makes it even worse.
I'm sorry I wasn't able to prop you up throughout the episode. I did my best.
But... No, you did pretty good. So any last thoughts that you have before we call it a wrap, buddy?
I'm excited about the trade deadline coming up. It's been wild. I wish Rick Tocchet all the best as the new head coach. It's not an easy situation going in there. I'm looking forward to the latter half of the season. And I'm still pretty pumped about Buffalo potentially making the playoffs, given how well they've been playing in the last little bit. Just some thoughts.
Yeah, it is. You actually think Buffalo can make the playoffs, eh?
It could be a wild card spot. I mean, Islanders have really fallen out of contention, and Pittsburgh has kind of been ebb and flow, kind of like Edmonton. Like you never know what you're going to get, and so you wonder, that wild card spot. So it'll be interesting to see. It's finally nice to see still a bit of a contention, because last year at this time there was already the 8 teams set for who was going to make the playoffs. It was just a matter of placement.
Interesting. Yeah, interesting. And I actually think there's 3 teams fighting for the wild, 3-4 fighting for that wild card playoff, kind of on the bottom of the top 3 in the division. And I think there's only 4 in the Western Conference. There's a lot of teams that are out of it, which means that should make for more trades. Possibilities of players trying to load up in so basically the whole first round draft, there's an expectation that you could see out of 32 teams picking, where in another 3 years or 4 years that you're going to see at least 28 to 30 of those players actually playing for their respective NHL teams or somewhere else in the NHL. That's a really high number. That could turn out to be maybe not the most superstars, but the players who play more than 300 plus games. That could be a year we look back to in 2023 as a very, very strong draft. So
agreed.
All right, man. Well, it's been great, guys. If you do not already follow us on YouTube, definitely do follow. One thing about YouTube, I will say that if you guys are able to follow us there, it's easy to pick us up from anywhere. Watch on your big screen TV. Also, follow us right here on Facebook. Follow us at Sports Empire Network. You can also catch us on our Twitter feeds for myself and for Pavel. Pavel, you got them memorized. What are our Twitter feeds?
Rev and Ev for Evan, and for us it's Hucky_2.
And if you don't know what underscore means, that means you don't use Twitter. So it's perfectly fine. No. All right. Well, it's been another ring-a-ding-dong dandy, buddy. I'd like to say thanks for everybody for watching. Thanks for not belittling me like my partner likes to do so often when I mess things up. But don't worry, we'll get him back when he starts messing up all the names of his players. I think what happened, Pavel, season 1, I corrected you way too much on players' pronunciation and names. And now you seem to be the podcast host who seems to know the most.
You know what? I think what I do is I'll sprinkle in an error, like something silly I'll say and from time to time. You know, I know that is wrong just to make you feel good about yourself. Just
that's so good.
Ease that back pain, and make you feel like you matter. But
so
we do want to. I do appreciate everything you do, Evan, and everything that you've accomplished here for the show. You do a lot, and it's also because it's Bell Let's Talk Day. Now, I don't want to talk about the company, but I do want to talk about mental health. And you guys, reach out to whoever you can, your counselors, friends, family, people in your circle. Reach out because it can be tough sometimes, regardless of what you're doing. It can be overwhelming. And hockey is a great way to unwind and really connect us in a positive way. And we appreciate you joining us on the show. But remember, care for one another, be respectful, and don't be mean.
Exactly.
I can only be mean to Evan. And that's because he doesn't know how to pronounce Gavrikov. But
all right, guys. Well, in the meantime and in between time,
keep your sticks on the ice. Stay safe.
Cheers.